Hey guys, wanted to make a quick short video here, kind of trying this out for the first time. Want to see if there's any interest in this. Haven't done this before, so not sure how well I do or how successful it will be. But one of the interesting things to me about EverQuest is not just how many people have played over the years, but how we all play it a little bit differently. And I think due to the age of the game, there's been so many different iterations on how to play. Some of us who have played since 1999 remember very old school user interface. Then it was changed in Scars of Velios. There was a little bit of an improvement. And then what eventually became the modern UI that we have today. And I thought I would just give a little walkthrough on how I have mine set up and why I have it set up the way that I have it set up. Um, I think this might be inspiring to others. Maybe you'll learn some little tip or trick that you think is useful, and maybe you'll post something in the comments that I might be able to learn from and might improve my gameplay a little bit. Thought I would just kind of go around my UI and talk a little bit about what I've got here. Of course, along the bottom I have chat windows. It's pretty common, I'm sure. I have blacked out, since I'm streaming, any chat windows where I'm seeing messages from other players. So kind of in this chat window here on the left that's blacked out that you can't see. I keep like guild chat out of character, auction, kind of big type channels are there. And then on the right hand side, I try to keep smaller type channels. So say group. I started putting tells in there. I'm actually more a fan of tell windows, but I thought, since I'm streaming, people don't know that they're being recorded, and I don't think it's really fair to stream what they're saying to me. So I moved that into that one as well. Then over on the left-hand side here, I've got a window just for damage. Um, Back in the day, especially when I was a guild leader or a raid leader, but even just because I like keeping everything, I used to basically filter nothing, so that I could just log everything, check parses, see how I was comparing against others, whether it was damage or spell casts or whatever. Um, but just kind of playing more casually now and not having any kind of leadership role in a guild where I need to be inspecting how others are doing. I've got all that turned off, and this is really just my damage now. So if I'm hitting somebody with spell or melee attack, that's going down there. And if I'm getting hit, that's where it's going. A couple other random messages show up there because, that's how uh, that's how this game is coded, and it's not always the way that we would hope it would be. And then on the right hand side, down over here, I labeled this spam. This is just kind of all the random little crap that the game throws at you that, um, I like to see it. I like to read it. Some of it's pretty useful. The loading, please wait information. If I'm leaving a DZ, uh, loot rolls are in here. People leaving and joining the raid, experience messages, all this random kind of crap that you probably should see, but I don't need it in the middle of my chat window. It's just kind of something to glance at every now and then. Then I'll go around clockwise like so. Then above this damage window, I've got my primary hotbar. Now I pretty much just put mostly my spells on here, and then I've got a couple other things. Uh, I think a lot of people have this going 1 through 0, and then the minus and equal sign, which I believe is the default. Um, I'm kind of weird. I've really been playing EQ since 1999, and when the game first released, you didn't have 10 hotkeys on your bar, you only had 6. And I remember when they patched in those extra 4, and I didn't really like the idea of stretching my hand all the way across the keyboard, so I took 7, 8, 9, and 0 and mapped those to Q, W, E, and R, which I still use to this day. So I've got those first 6 on spells, which are really just my spell gems 1 through 6. I know that I could press Alt and the number and cast those, but that's one more action that I have to perform to cast a spell. Sometimes I don't feel like I have that kind of time. Um, and I did put Q and W aren't spells. They're two hotkeys, and then E and R round out my spell gems. I have played expansions. I think we get our 9th spell gem in Omens of War, and then a 10th spell gem a little bit later. I've played in those expansions. I'll have to change this up a little bit, I guess. I don't remember exactly how I'd like to handle those. Um, but right now, this is the way that I've got it set up so that I have all 8 spells right there, quick and easy to cast, and then 2 hotkeys that I need pretty frequently. I've got Q as my assist, and I have this set up in a way that I think is helpful for raiding, where initially I'm just going to perform an assist. So if I'm targeted on a player or a mob, and hit that key, it's going to target that target's target when there's no main assist set in the group or the raid. But if there is a main assist set in the group or the raid, then I do want to choose that target. So secondly, it enters assist main. And this way, if there's not a main assist set, that's okay. I'm still assisting, but the priority is to assist the main assist, and that makes sure that that always happens. And of course, I have my assist set to off so that I'm not attacking. But this helps me, and for some reason I put it in green, so I guess that I would see it really easily. And then I have a pet attack hotkey, which I've got set up here. This is also 2 lines. I have pet Q attack, which queues up the mob to be attacked, adds the mob to the hate list, and then the /pet attack itself to actually send my pet in. I find that this is helpful so that if there's a series of mobs in the camp, maybe I'm XPing or maybe I'm even on a raid and it's just a situation where we've got a lot of trash in the camp, I can hit this, I can cycle targets, a tab targeting. I don't use tab, but I use a different key, but I can cycle targets through the nearest NPCs and queue up my pet to attack all of them and make sure that he goes in and does his job. I mean, I play a shaman, so my pet's not doing that much, but at least he's not just standing around not doing anything at all. And then I also keep two items. Right now, I'm playing on the Finnegal TLP server, and we're in the Plains of Power expansion. So, unfortunately, we don't have clicking from bags. Really sucks. If I could choose one quality of life change for them to implement, it would be clicking out of bags. So I've got, of my 8 inventory slots, I've got 6 bags, and I keep 2 open for items. Sometimes I'll just keep 1 open, but I was able to pick up 2 of the 40 slot bags, which we'll look at in just a moment. And I really have plenty of bag space, so this is working pretty well for me. Right now I've got a healing potion in there and a mod rod. Just got through with a raid, so I've got some raid stuff out here. A lot of times I might have a mount down there. Usually I do have some kind of 1 or 2 potions in there. But that's how I've got that first hotbar set up. Of course, the group window, everybody's familiar with the group window. I've got my own health, mana, endurance. I'm not really using endurance, but I've got my information right here to the right of the group window, and then to the right of that, the target's target. I don't know if this is just me, but maybe it's from reading left to right or whatever. But I really like all that information just down in the left-hand corner where I can just glance at it, see all the hit point bars, know exactly what's going on. And then I've kind of filled this in a little bit with just some odds and ends items from the UI, like the EQ button and the Daybreak store, and of course the compass is always useful to see as well. Right here, I've got a hotbar that it's kind of just a dump for hotkeys that I'm using frequently, or I need to know the timers on, or I don't want to have to go hunting around for. Origin, not using Origin all that much now that we're in Plains of Power, but it's nice to have handy. Mass group buff, you know, obviously super useful in raids. You're going to be using that every time you raid. Got a couple of other things in here. Radiant Cure, Virulent Paralysis, and Canny. I'm actually very rarely clicking these over here. I have them on hotkeys, which we'll look at in just a moment down in the lower right. But this lets me uh, manually click them or see timers if my hotkey timers are off, and we'll look at that. And then I've got forage, bind wound, fishing, begging, you know, skills that I'm just kind of messing around with. A little bit above that, we have the spell gem lineup. You can press Alt and see what spells you got going on here. I've got a fairly typical shamany level 65 spell lineup. Nothing surprising here. In the very upper left, I have the net window or net UI piece. You can't really move this thing around. You can press 11 or Alt F11 or something to toggle this thing on and off. I think I may have actually turned that toggle off because I like to always know if I'm experiencing packet loss or have any kind of lag. So I always leave that up there in the corner. I've got another hotbar up here. A lot of this is for common slash commands that I'm going to be using, like the advanced loot window. I've got rewind on here, you know, and I've got 5 copies of it. You know, if you ever get stuck in a wall or in occasional raid situations, there's a reason why you need to rewind, and you need to make sure that it happens and be spamming it. So I keep that handy. I don't really use that very often anymore, but super useful in Plane of Sky and a couple of other raids. I got the looking for group hotkey. You know, it's nice to be able to pop this open and see the window. I know it's just typing 4 letters on the keyboard, but I like to have it right there. And then of course pick zone, since pick zones are pretty popular on Finny. I just like being able to click a button instead of having to type it in. Also have the skills hotkey. I thought this was kind of cool. I didn't actually know that you could make a hotkey for your skills, but if you open inventory and hold down, no, I'm wrong. You can't do it that way. You have to go in through here, I think. Yes. You hit the EQ button, go to character and find skills, and you hold it down, and you can actually make yourself a little skills hotkey. So that's kind of cool. You know, I'm kind of a completionist, and I like to max as many of my skills as possible. So, you know, I throw that up, and when I have a little downtime or whatever, you know, I'll work on fishing or something. Haven't been using the mail feature too much lately, but I've had moments when I did have use for it, so I made a little mail hotkey. Then I've got some stuff for Gina up here, which I'll explain a little bit, or in another video. I want to make some videos about making the most of Gina, which is a third-party overlay software. It's really fantastic. If you haven't ever used it before, I highly recommend it. It's kind of like taking the audio triggers that are built into the game and then just taking that times 10. It's really useful, and that's what I've got going on with these yellow hotkeys up here. Typically my pet window would appear here at the top, and I did load my pet summon spell so that we could take a look at that. I'm going to summon my weak shaman pet, and that pops up right here. I I don't need this to be a huge window, so a lot of people are going to run this where you can see a lot more of these buttons, but I just keep this smaller and actually keep the pet buttons over here. I find this window kind of awkward, and I wish that I could resize it even better, where I could resize the hit point bar or something. So I want to see my pet's hit points, and I want to see what buffs and debuffs are on him. But I've tried to make this as unobtrusive as possible, and I still may do more with this over time. I'm always kind of playing with how I like the pet window. You can see the various pet buttons that I have over here: pet back, leader, Q attack, leave, hold, guard, taunt, follow. You know, just the common pet commands that you might be using. Also got a couple other things that I've been using for raids recently. You know, just sending tells or targeting people. I keep my spell buffs on the right hand side here. You can see that I've still got a couple raid buffs on me. Um, One thing that I like to do, and I guess I could have loaded up some buffs to demonstrate this, it's not really necessary, is this is exactly 15 buffs long. That way I know exactly when I have max buffs on me. If I need to click something off to get a buff that I need, I'll be able to do that. In Planes of Power, we don't have the opportunity to do buff blocking yet. And here in another couple expansions, I know that we'll be able to get more buffs. But right now the limit is 15. So I have my buff window sized for exactly 15. Down here is the short duration window for bard songs, heal over time spells, stuff like that. That's not something that I feel like I need to pay quite as much attention to. So I've just got it here filling up the rest of the space. Final hot button here that I've got is some stuff that I'm going to yell at my group or possibly my raid. Just information like if I'm slowing a mob, it tells my group, tells my raid that the mob is slowed. This isn't as useful these days now that we can inspect buffs, but sometimes it's nice to have, and sometimes you'll find a group that wants you to tell, or maybe you're in a raid where it's very critical to know when a mob has been slowed. I've got something made up for slow, melee, cripple, not really using these hotkeys much anymore, but I've had them for a while. Got something over here for root. Probably not really ever going to tell your raid when you've rooted something, so I've just got that on group. And then I have a couple of hotkeys that tie in with my AAs, canny, cure, and viral paralysis. These look a little bit different. For canny, I like to tell my group that I'm hitting canny so they don't freak out when I lose, 30% of my health. And if I have a healer in my group, maybe they'll spot me a heal. The alt activate number, which you can find by pressing V and pulling up the actual AA item. You'll be able to see what the alternate ability number is. And then something which, and this is why I want to do this kind of video and I want to get comments back, because this is something that I've been playing EQ for 18 years off and on, that I only just learned recently, is this /timer function. So what this does is puts an actual timer on the hotkey when I hit it. This is going to be for 181 seconds, or 3 minutes and 1 second, which is about the cast time of this. So then when I hit this canny, it casts it. I guess it takes a little bit more than a second. Then I actually get a countdown here of how many seconds with the red mark over it, saying how much longer it's going to be till it's ready. Now everybody else in the world may know this, but I only recently learned it, and I thought that was pretty cool. So over here, I can see what it actually is. Sometimes that's useful. Sometimes when you're zoning or other things can happen where these get out of sync, and you can just right click on this to reset it and then get yourself squared away on after it finally cools down and you use it again. Got Radiant Cure here for myself and my group, cure everybody. And then, of course, a Virulent Paralysis, which probably it's not going to let me cast in Plane of Knowledge. No, you cannot cast detrimental spells here. But this just tells my group that I'm rooting them. It has the little timer, have it refresh in 121 seconds. Same thing with curing the group. Let the group know that I'm doing Radiant Cure. It has a limited radius, so hopefully people are close. And then I also have my Epic on here. Not really casting this much anymore, but it can be a little bit of free dot damage. And of course, I keep my Feign Death ring over here in case I. Uh, right now it's out of charges. I need to get this thing recharged, but you know, every shaman wants to carry around their Feign Death ring from Sky. Also have the target window here. This I've stretched this out on purpose, just like I have 15 buffs along the side up and down here. For my buff window, I also have exactly 15 buffs across. This may not be useful to a lot of people, but some classes who are buffing, shamans especially, but enchanters, clerics, druids, you know, anybody who's buffing, I'm gonna guess probably want to know when their target has exactly 15 buffs on them, so that you're not trying to cast on somebody who has their buffs full. So I've done that. I found that to be super helpful over the years. I have it a little bit longer here because when you're fighting enemies, especially raid bosses and stuff, they're not limited to 15 effects, and so this will fit 45, and sometimes it fills up, and I'm sure that there's even more stuff landing on them, but I'm not gonna bother making that even larger. So that's just kind of a quick rundown of what I'm looking at here
Cannibalization is
for
ready.
my, yep, and now my cannibalization is ready, it tells me. And that audio trigger and the pop-up is part of the Gina add-on, which again, want to make a video of down the road. But hopefully that gives some useful information about how I have my UI set up. Again, leave some comments if you have something different. If you have a suggestion or you have any particular questions that I didn't answer. Also, again, this is my first time making this kind of video, so I feel like I might remake this someday after I get stuff polished up a little bit and have a better idea of how to make a video like this and how to answer questions or whatever. But I appreciate you watching, and I hope that you found this helpful. Let me know either way. Thank you.